up and into the pesky pole. And that's going to get down the line. That one looks like it'll stay fair. And goodbye, home run. The pesky pole.
The 2-2. Swinging a fly ball deep down the right field line, slicing by the pesky pole. And that ball hits the pesky pole, which means it's gone. A home run.
3-2 high fly down the right field line, slicing toward the pesky pole into the corner, and that ball is gone. A green can. Now with a high fly down the right field line, headed toward the pesky pole. Is he going to tuck it inside? Indeed he does. That is gone.
Welcome to another episode of the Pesky Podcast. I'm your host, the Ritt. With me is our head writer, Mr. George Sutherland. George, what's been going on, man? How you doing?
Good. A busy day today for me personally, but you know, it's good. Looks like we're gonna have a really nice holiday weekend up here, so I'll take that.
Hey, I'm so glad. George, we got a guest on today. We got a third person on here that I have been talking to the man's wife for a while. She put me on to him. I listened to the podcast now. I watched the videos. This man is in touch with the city of Boston. But before we bring him on, I think I'm going to play a little tribute video I have of the name of the podcast.
Okay.
So hopefully this will help everybody out. Then bring him in.
City. And nobody gonna dictate your freedom. Stay strong. Thank you.
We are bringing in Mikey Two Guns, host of our Bleepin City. Mikey, what's been going on, man? How you doing?
What's happening, my man? Thank you so much for having me on. Love the intro. I mean, as you can tell, that was the inspiration for the name of the podcast, my podcast. I'm so excited to be on. I wish we were talking more pennant race today, but you know, this is a Sox show. We're going to talk everything Sox. I can't wait to get this on with you. So let's go.
Hey, don't push it off back to us yet. Mikey, tell everybody about your podcast and how you came about. Steph told me a little bit about it, and I would love to be in your shoes right now. So tell everybody.
Well, it's funny because, as you can see behind me, I'm just a diehard sports fan, Red Sox fan. I mean, the Sox baseball is my passion, always has been. Been a diehard fan for a long time. And one of the things that I'd always loved to do was meet the athletes, have some interaction, just kind of get a feel for what they're actually like, being, behind the camera of the bright lights. So the podcast came about because I'd go to a lot of autograph shows or just signings, and I'd go there not just for the signings, but to interact a little bit with the athletes. And never thought I'd be here doing this podcast were it not for a man named Larry B, who operates the station IE Sports Radio out of California. But I don't know, by the grace of God, divine intervention, he saw one of my posts I think I was just talking to David Ortiz. I was making him laugh. I was talking about his underrated defense, which people didn't really get to see because, he'd play it mostly in the World Series or earlier in his career. And he asked me one day, I just got a DM out of the blue. And he said, "Do you want to host your own show? Do you want a podcast?" And I was like, it took me off guard because I wasn't looking forward. It was the last thing on my mind. I had gotten laid off recently. I was just feeling kind of down, just, scrolling, doing my regular Twitter stuff just to get the new, Twitter news. And when he asked me that, it kind of energized me, and it just hit me like, I want to share some of these experiences I've had talking to the athletes. I always seem to run into I have a good eye for recognizing them, even when they're trying not to be or trying to blend into the crowd, if they're at Fenway or whatnot. And it just hit me like, I want to share some of these experiences and interactions and my take on the sport, on sports from my experiences with with other people. Cause I have some cool stories. And, in the past, when I had no idea I'd be wanting to do a podcast, and I would post, a great clip of, me making, someone like Joe Mazzulla laugh, who he's a Celtics coach who's stone-faced.
Mm-hmm.
You never know any emotions. And I'd post something like that, and it would have like 10 views. And it'd be like, I wish the world could see this side of this athlete the way I just saw him. So when Larry came to me asking me to do the podcast, I was like, I had no idea what goes into all, the podcast, setting it up, any of this stuff. But I was like, I want to try this. Like, I want to be able to share my experiences, connect with other fans, podcasters like yourself, network, make a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started the podcast having zero clue what the heck I was doing, how to operate the podcasting board. My first 2 or 3 podcasts probably is like a blooper reel of like what not to do when you're podcasting. Like I had a lot of, I think I tried to have a guest like my first or second show, and it just came back static, and I had some growing pains, but but then it's led me to where I am now. I'm still really young in the game, and still really new to this, but it's given me a little bit of platform and a little bit of legitimacy to where now, since I live so close to, I'm right in the Boston area, I'm able to get to a lot of these events and talk to some of the athletes and get some cool content that I can share and talk about. I was just at the Turner Trot with Justin Turner the other day, and got some good quotes from him. But it's now kind of led me to find this kind of, I guess, talent that I didn't know I had too, which I also started messing around with some video software, which this really budget program, like $50 program. And I had no idea what I was doing. And then over like a few weeks, I was like, started to put together cool videos and cool edits. And it got to the point where I'd do some cool highlights, and the Red Sox players would be like putting them in their story for the highlight of the game where, Kenley strikes out a guy and the ball hits the mitt and it explodes. And a lot of the players would start loving it. So I'm trying to put the podcast along with the video editing that I'm kind of just teaching myself together. And, that kind of brings me where I am today, where I do every Wednesday, 7 to 8. On IE Sports Radio, my show. Thank you for tuning in yesterday, and we talked about that off air. I mean that I have no idea where it's going to go. I would love to make a career out of this, but I'm having a whole lot of fun doing it. And I mean, I think I'm like a lot of kind of living the dream of a lot of Sox fans, where they want to kind of just be that fan that has a little bit of that inside, track and knowledge and be able to share it with people. So that's kind of the short version of the story and, how our Bleepin City came about.
Yeah. It's quite ironic because before the Pesky Podcast, I was part of another podcast. It was a pro wrestling podcast, Front Row Material. Mikey Whipwreck, Jerry Lynn, and Mike Freeland, they kind of taught me the ways, of podcasting. I interviewed all these guys that I grew up watching, and the biggest thing I've learned was these guys are just normal people. Like, talk to them like they're normal,
exactly.
And they're open up, and they're gonna sit there and you're gonna have a great time.
Nailed it.
I kind of sit there and felt I hit a wall. So I stopped doing the Front Row Material podcast. and DC, who's not here today, used to work together, and we'd be going along the lines of, okay, I would sit there and be talking to him, and I'm like, dude, let's start a Red Sox podcast. Him and I are big Red Sox fans.
I can't
And
tell.
He looked at me and goes, okay, this is December.
Yeah.
January came. What we talked about, but we really didn't do nothing. Then all of a sudden, February came. And with the name, came up with the podcast idea. We want to do something differently.
Yeah.
So we try to bring on writers on from other teams. So it's kind of like a one-stop shop. Our first guy I think we had on was Cody Duncan, covered the Pirates. He loved the idea. He came on. It was weird. Our 9th episode, we had Keith Folk on.
Wow.
And to sit there and be able to interview him on our 9th episode was crazy. And then,
awesome.
To sit there and be even more mind blown, we had Devin Marrero on.
Wow.
And he was telling us about his first home run that he hit at Yankee Stadium, that he never got the ball back. To go have somebody contact us who had that ball and wanted to give it back.
Get out of here.
We gave him we got his home run ball back.
That is awesome. Man, see, it's stories like that about meeting the athletes. You get that.
The backstory behind it was terrific. So
exactly. That's awesome. I mean, you pretty much kind of share a lot of the same sentiments that I do about, getting the cool stories, getting the game, the game behind the game. And that was awesome hearing that story with Devin. So very cool.
Oh, okay. It seems like we're having some slight technical difficulties in and out.
Can you guys hear me okay?
So
yeah, I can hear you fine.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I think I'm the one that's glitching, isn't it?
I think it was a little choppy at one point.
Yeah.
So let's go into the first one. Let's sit there and talk about the Angels a little bit. Hopefully I can get stuff on my end cleared up. George, you want to start taking this one?
Sure.
The Angels earlier this week DFA'd 5 or 6 of their players. All but one found a team today, and not one of them was the Red Sox. But George, let's start with you and talk about the Angels pretty much tanking right now.
Adi Moreno in a nutshell. Malfunction, dysfunction. I just, I sit there and during that, and I saw that, and I'm like, okay, you went out and went and picked up Giolito, you had more, and then, goes out and spend big bucks for Renfroe and Grichuk. It's like, okay, you're going to do something. All right. It doesn't work out. Trout's still on the IL. And of course, then Shohei, has elbow problems. And it's like, Adi, you can't do anything right. And then, he's like, well, maybe if I dump him now, some guys will pick him up, and I'm not up for I'm not up for whatever the total money was. I think it was wasn't it like $6 million or something like that? It wasn't a lot of money.
No.
It's like, what are you doing?
What's he think? Like he can release them and people forget about it, and what they get claimed?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I think he thinks he leads a charmed life at times.
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by it. Of the guys that he released, the only two I'd be interested in would be Giolito and Moore. Okay, we need pitching would be good right now.
Yeah,
okay,
absolutely.
Especially a bullpen arm and a starter who knows what the heck they're doing. Yeah. Because right now this is a very tired ball club. So let's bring it in and not these retreads. That might have a good outing in them, and then all of a sudden sink faster than the Titanic. But
guys like Kluber that had a Cy Young 10 years ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, and of course, all the diehards are like, well, yeah, this would be really good. No, he's had to reinvent himself. Okay. And that didn't go real well. I think that, they found gold dust with Paxton.
Paxton, yeah.
But, he hasn't pitched a lot. And now you're seeing the more innings he has, he hasn't, he hasn't built that strength.
Yeah.
Because he hasn't really pitched in 2 years, or almost 3. So, this is what you're faced with. All right. And, some of the younger guys, I talked about a couple of weeks ago, it's like, they haven't pitched this much. All right.
Yeah.
Bale, I looked at the other day, prior to his start yesterday, he pitched 22, he has 22 starts. By and large, the most by any starter on the staff. He's the youngest kid in the staff. And yet, he's struggling.
Yeah.
He's I won't say he's hit a wall, but he's not as sharp as he was 5 or 6 starts ago. And it's, and they don't have really a veteran guy to kind of come in and, stop the bleeding. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I was, it's like I said, on the Angels, it's Artie Moreno at his best. If I can, I found a new way to make myself look dumb.
You almost feel like the Angels threw away this could be a franchise change. That could be a franchise changing decision. Their choice to not sell at the trade deadline, where they could have gotten a handful of top line prospects to stock their farm system and excuse me, and just replenish their team for the future. And instead they sold pieces from the farm system to try to have that long shot of a chance to get Trout and Ohtani in the playoffs. And as you said, excuse me, Artie Moreno just absolutely butchered that whole situation. And as a Sox fan, I'm disappointed though, because the minute that they DFA'd the guys like, Giolito, who I was hoping that the Sox would have traded for at the trade deadline, I wasn't thinking of teams like the Indians swooping in. You kind of look at the the list of records and who's got first dibs, and I thought, my God, the Sox, that they got a good chance to get him. And and nope, Cleveland just took all the goodies. Which I wish they'd change that rule, which would only allow teams maybe to claim like one guy in situations like this. But they, the Sox, they're, I mean, it's on the Sox, so they didn't prepare for this. They, no one could have expected what the Angels just did. So, and the pitch of the bullpen's in shambles. Like you said, the starting rotation, we're relying on, untested rookies like Bayo that have never been through this type of grind, and guys like Paxton that, their arm is kind of hanging on a thread. They haven't pitched in a few years. It's just such bad.
It's a head scratcher.
Yeah.
And you look at, like I said, you sit there and as somebody who, follows baseball and, a diehard baseball fan, I sit there and you're going, boy, you just screwed up your franchise.
Yeah.
Especially if they wanted to move on from Shohei, right?
Yeah.
Trade him. He becomes a free agent. You want him back, write a check.
That's it.
And if not, as you said, you build your farm system up and you're going, hey, maybe we can start to, remake this as well. And, and then of course Shohei, takes away.
What made it even worse is his injury now. His value
it just got cut in half.
Exactly.
Right? That $600 million contract that, everybody's like, oh yeah, he's he gets 6 years, $100 million a year, whatever. You just cut that off. He's,
Oh yeah.
I mean, I thought for sure that, if people were smart about it and they looked at if you looked at the trajectory down the line, he's going to have to give up probably pitching if he comes back, at least in the next 3 to 4 years, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't do both. Sooner or later, your body breaks down.
I mean, Babe Ruth did it 100 years ago. You can only
but he did it in reverse. Okay.
Yeah.
He was a pitcher he could hit, and he could hit, he hit bombs, but
Yeah.
he didn't blossom into the
That's a
the
great
real
point.
home
To
run
the
hitter
hitter
until
that he
his
was.
last year in
That's a
Boston.
great
And
point.
then, in the 20s.
Yeah.
So, that's just, enjoy it while it lasts,
Yeah.
because it's something to see.
Yeah. Which we might not see ever at the level that it was earlier this year ever again. So.
Oh no. The question is how he comes back.
Yeah.
Get the surgery now, and he's, you might have him for late July, early August of next year. In the
Best
meantime,
case,
he'll open up spring training. He'll put a bat in his hand, and he'll be fine.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper proved that. So,
Right.
I'm just incredibly disappointed in the Angels in terms of how they ran it.
Terrible.
I kind of half expected this from Chaim Bloom, but
you got to feel for Mike Trout too. 12 years.
yeah, I'd like to be
one
him.
playoff appearance.
Yeah.
I
Good
can imagine
guy,
he's itching to get out of
quality player,
Yeah.
and he's never gonna. It's like he's cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah, me personally, I was a little baffled. First off, how the Angels just gave up, and this is just like fantasy football, fantasy baseball esque, where you're like,
Dumping
I'm in
guys.
last place. I'm dumping everybody, but one guy. It's my keeper for next year.
Yeah.
Good luck in the free agent waiver. Another thing that I was a little baffled about was, I thought the rule was you claim one, or you can put in more claims, but I didn't think you could get two people at once.
Yeah, it seems like a rule that has to be fixed. Like
because this day the Reds picked up a couple guys, 5 guys.
Yeah.
And where will that left that everybody else? It should have been you claim the one person you want, and then just like you would in fantasy baseball. I put in 4 of them. This is the order I want them. If it gets to me, it gets to me. If not, like it was just weird how Lopez and Giolletti like both went there, because I would have took either one. Don't care about their ERA. They might be able to find something to get fixed, but we need somebody to help with our bullpen out and eat innings.
Exactly.
At the beginning of the season, I always put out Purcell all the time. Purcell, he wasn't consistent, but he was always there. 8 innings, 120, 125 innings, always was there, and we don't have that this year. Like we're relying on a young kid in Bayo to get there. So it baffles me. It's the whole Angels, how the commissioner let that happen.
Yeah. I can't recall any situation ever like that. Just a team just kind of throws in the white flag and just dumps half the team. I don't know if you guys can recall any situation like that. I've never seen it before.
In the 70s, Charlie Finley tried to do it with the A's.
Oh, really?
With Raleigh Fingers and those and those guys, but MLB backed them off. And said, no, you can't do that. And I'm surprised because everybody they talked about redoing the draft and to make sure that people weren't tanking and things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. This is about the worst overt act of tanking I can see, short of like bringing up a bunch of single A players. I'll tell you what, this makes the Oakland A's look like geniuses right now.
Yeah. One thing too, I don't know what it is about the modern game today. What happened to starting pitchers that could go into the 7th inning? It's like you don't see that at all anymore. It's such this whole new thing with the openers and just in the postseason, I get it. You got short hooks. You're not going to give pitchers a chance to really let up any big innings. Okay, the postseason, I get it, but the regular season, I mean, we got starters just going 4 innings, and it's almost the norm. We're lucky if they get the 5 innings to qualify for the win, but I remember, growing up, Clemens and even Schilling, Pedro, those guys would be going 7, 8, 9 innings. Like it's regularly. Like now it's like it's like the dinosaurs. You don't see it anymore. So I don't understand it. It seems to and I mean that's a huge part of what has killed the bullpen is our starters. They don't pitch. They don't pitch deep in the games anymore.
True.
Yeah, and one thing that I think is a big problem is the pitch clock.
Yeah.
Like the pitch clock sped up the game so much for the pitchers, it's not giving them those couple extra seconds to, yeah.
It's a great point.
So,
great point.
Let's move on to highlight Jarren Duran is over, and what a season he's had compared to last year. Complete 180. This man went above and beyond what we could ever expected from him when Out of the Ball went down. George, what are your thoughts on Jarren Duran's season this year? How it ended, and what are your expectations next year?
In the beginning of coming into the season, I thought that he made a huge mistake by putting himself on the WBC roster. Okay. He was battling for a job. He wasn't there to take advantage of the situation. He came late to camp. And I think the thought process at the time was, we'll go to Tapia and we'll send him down. To his credit, he overcame some demons that he's had in the past in terms of confidence and things like that, or getting his head squared away. Got that squared away. Pedroia famously told him, get your hands up, okay? And, he started following that, and he started ripping the ball. And like I said, freak injury to Duvall, he's at the big club, and all of a sudden, he's like a totally different player. Unfortunately for him, he always tends to be aggressive. Most of the time it works out. He scaled the wall, got his toe, this is the series of freak injuries for the Red Sox this year. Okay. Duvall on the wrist trying to make a good play, Howell getting hit in the face. This is like the most freakish things you could imagine in his toe, and now he's gone. I expect him to be back next year. Now, where they put him, with Rafaela and, some other things they could do this offseason, that remains to be seen. But I think he's proven now that he can be a quality everyday major league outfielder. But he's got to hit against lefties. And, AC is wasn't too keen on the idea. I think he was trying to set him up for success, but at some point, you got to take the training wheels off and let him go.
Yep. I sit there and the exact same thing. Mikey, what are your thoughts?
I mean, what a turnaround. I mean, last year, remember that play with the Toronto where they hit the ball, he has no idea, it turns into like a triple or a home inside the park home run. Like what? That was kind of the low point of Duran. And this year, I mean, just what a bounce back. He's for the most part, his defense has improved greatly. His hitting, his power is shockingly just really come to form. And on the bases, the guy turns singles into doubles. So he's a real weapon to have. And he's been a real asset to the team this year. I really hope they do incorporate him, full time, and like George said, take the training wheels off and have him be an everyday player, so that he can hit against lefties as well. But he's probably one of the biggest surprises, I'd say, this year, compared to where he was at this point, last year. Like I didn't even expect to see him really on the team this year. I thought he might be destined to be a AAA player for a while, but he's been a huge asset, one of the best players. Even in the Houston series when Duvall was in center field, there was a handful of plays where either he got turned around the wrong way or the ball hit off towards the base of the wall. And the way he's played this year, you kind of figured those are ones that Duran would have had. So our defense has just been an absolute, bleep show this year. But his tools, and he doesn't always take the best route on balls, and he dives unnecessarily for certain balls. But if he can get that together and put together, with the hitting, I mean, the guy could be a real star on this team. So I'm looking forward to what he can improve on. Hopefully that toe heals up good, and see what he can do next year.
Yeah, I love Duran all season. I was trying to call him Daddy Doubles, but it didn't matter. If he hit the wall, he was on second base.
Yeah.
He would even push it, sometimes go to third.
Yeah.
I loved how he turned everything around.
Walks into doubles.
No, the defense was phenomenal this year. And I look forward to having him every day center fielder, maybe even move him over to right field a little bit. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But with his injury, kind of brings us up to the next topic, Ceddanne Rafaela's debut. He was able to come up because of Duran going on the IL. This kid has been hot in Double-A, and even hotter when he went up to Triple-A. I got to see him a couple times when DC and I were there at Scranton in the press box getting to watch. Man, that kid's the truth. Let's start with.
I think he's going to you, George.
Okay.
Your thoughts on him, I think.
Yeah, Rafaela, I got a chance. I live about 20 miles outside of Portland.
Oh,
And,
nice.
I got a chance to see him, both his defense and his bat. He's one of these kids, the guys that just harder on himself than anybody else will ever be, but he's also super aggressive. And, he's learned to control the strike zone a little bit better. So, he's got talent. My goodness. And speed to boot. Picture a lineup with him, Story, and who am I forgetting? Him, Story, and
Duran?
Duran in the same lineup. Oh my God. Speed like the Red Sox have never had.
Speed kills, yeah.
Oh, it does. And Duran puts so much pressure on the defense. Rafaela has the same capability. So, that's a really nice problem to have. But yeah, he's demonstrated he belongs. They always said he had a great glove. They were just trying to get him to be a better hitter. I think he's shown that, I can do that. And, he's shown that he hits the ball hard. So that's a nice way to welcome himself to the majors.
Yeah, Mikey. What are your thoughts on Rafaela so far?
Yeah, I wasn't fortunate enough to have a preview of him, like seeing him in the minors at all. I had I'd hear his name all the time, and I had no idea what to expect. But the guy's electric. He's kind of got that like Jacoby Ellsbury feel. Just he's coming up, hitting the ball hard. He's super skilled, athletic. When he's in the game, even when we're getting blown out by Houston, the one guy that was shining was Rafaela, and you it does make you excited for next season because he seems like he's got superstar potential there, and he's just going to make things happen when he's on the base paths, hitting. And like George was saying, the combo of guys like him, Duran, with the speed, it's going to be a real weapon. The pressure that they're going to put on defenses. So I'm super excited to see what he does for the rest of the season, and then going into next season. As long as he stays on this path, like I'm very excited to see what he can do. It seems like he probably hasn't even touched like the peak of he hasn't even really hit his stride yet. He's probably still learning a lot. So if this is what we've seen in the small sample, I cannot wait to see what's to come next.
Yeah, I talked to Tyler Murray. He's the broadcaster for the Woo Sox, and him and I had a small little bet going on.
The suspense.
Yeah,
I got to hear this bet. That was a good time to cut out. It's almost like a teaser. Like we had this small bet on. Oh, he's back. Okay. You cut out on the small bet.
So, we had a small bet on who would be, because the Woo Sox had their first time ever, first time inside the park home run this year, first time triple play this year. So we were talking about who would be the first time cycle, and I bet for Hamilton.
Yeah,
David Hamilton is
not a speed.
But he was like, "Oh, I'm gonna go for Rafaela." Now Rafaela's called up, so. But no, Rafaela, he's got the defense down. George messaged me last night. He was kind of intrigued on seeing him play shortstop, which I think he handled really well yesterday.
I thought he did. Yeah.
He can do what we were hoping at the beginning of the season for Kike to do. Be able to play center field and shortstop, where Rafaela can play center field and shortstop. So I'm really excited to see him continue, and I can't really wait until next season to hopefully get a full season with him in the bigs. It's going to be kind of fun next year in spring training when you look at, we got Massa, we got Jarren Duran, we got Rafaela, we got Abreu. We can't sit there and underestimate him anymore because he's done big things since being called up. We don't know with Verdugo if he's gonna, be extended, traded, just eat out his last year. So it's gonna be fun to see next year at spring training what's going to be going on. But let's go to the bullpen. And how tired do these guys look? Like, these guys look like they've been out there overworked and underpaid. Like, we bring up minor league pitchers to come in just to sit there and get demolished to give our guys a break.
Throw batting practice.
Mikey, well, what are your thoughts on the bullpen and just them looking beat down?
It kills me to see them they threw in the white towel the other day with Bear Claw. We were up 4-3 in a must-have, a game that they absolutely needed to have, and Core's best option was to throw in a guy just to eat innings. Like why? He should have been treating that like it was a playoff game. Mm-hmm. Maybe using a starter in relief if it was in that dire of a situation, having a plan before the game. Like if we have to go to the bullpen early, I don't know what the next starter was. That would have been the next day, but there had to have been a better plan, because this is just it's really sad to see them just throwing guys out there that are either not qualified to be in games like this, or guys that just look like their arm's about to fall off. So it's you got to put this on the GM. It's just terrible planning. Bad coaching too, a little bit. Like Cora should have prepared more for situations like this, because we were in that game. It wasn't a game that we were down 10-1 and we threw a guy in for 7 innings just to eat innings. Like, we gave up that game because our bullpen is shot, and we haven't planned adequately for situations like that. And you can't do that in the thick of a pennant race. And as fans, it just really just left a real sour taste in your mouth after seeing that, because that was a game that was completely winnable, and we lose because we don't have any pitching, like, at all, like anyone better than this guy that's mediocre AAA pitcher at best. So it really left a really sour taste in my mouth. And you hope they can fix situations like that for at least next season.
Yeah. That situation there, and not to only let him go out there, but to keep him out there.
Yeah.
Until the game is unreachable. Then you go and sit there and pull him. Like, what? Why? You know what I mean? You had other options out there available. Pavetta you could have brought in.
Yep.
He's been your innings eater from the bullpen for how long?
Yep. And reliable.
These guys in the bullpen remind me, like, I don't know if I've ever seen a bullpen as tired as I've seen this season's from the Red Sox, but it kind of seems to me, and I'm not mad. I respect AC. I respect AC so much, but it kind of seems to me that's his MO, because look how well, and people are going to sit there and attack me for this. Look how well Brazier is doing out in LA when he's not being used 3 games in a row. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Bush has got to go. He doesn't get today's game, to me, it seems. If he did, he would be able to help fix some of the pitching problems we have. And he's not capable of doing it. Look at Eovaldi, Walker, and who went to Pittsburgh, George?
Hill.
Hill, yeah. Hill.
All three guys were
you could have had for short money.
Yeah.
All 3 guys, they had problems in Boston. Okay, but you can't tell me that Eovaldi went to Texas before he got hurt, and he was killing it. Walker, before he got hurt, was killing it. Rich Hill, old reliable.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on? Is it our pitching coach that doesn't know how to work with these guys? Is AC blowing through our bullpen left and right, night after night, because he doesn't know how to pace the guys?
AC could be one of those managers, a bullpen killer. There are guys out there that just say, "Okay, you're up, let's go," and don't judiciously use the pen. AC's starting to look like he's one of those guys. But yeah, I mean, this pitching staff in general, top to bottom, they've run out of gas. I mentioned that in my column yesterday. They just ran out of gas. But you were asking for a lot from a pitching staff. At the beginning of the Kluber, long removed from the Cy Young days, trying to reinvent himself. Paxton, we didn't know if he was going to get on. He looked good, but he hasn't pitched in a couple of years, right? So he's expected to be tired. Pavetta found himself in the bullpen, and he's acquitted himself pretty good. All right, and I'm a big Pavetta fan. Whatever. Houck, freak injury, got hurt. The one that worries me most is Whitlock.
Yeah.
He hasn't come back.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why I was kind of hoping that if they picked up a Giolito, they could shut him down for the season
Yeah.
and kind of let him get him squared away, because he has not
Great point.
performed exceptionally
Velocity's
well.
way down.
It is way down, and that was the key to the sign he was hurt before, because his velocity dropped 4 to 5 miles an hour when they first noticed he was getting hurt. I'm wondering if he's just trying to gut through it.
Yeah.
But he could be one of those guys that just he isn't there. And then Chris Sale, you're hoping, and so when's the clock going to strike 12 and he's going to get hurt again. So yeah, I mean, this is a tied group of guys, and anybody else coming in after the fact, right, is getting overused. So
it's a great point about Cora perhaps being a pitcher killer, because I mean, you look at Whitlock a couple of years ago when they were in the playoffs, he was, the regular season, he had an ERA it was like the low twos, maybe below that. He was lights out. And Cora, I guess might not have shown up then, but some of these injuries might be a result of him using guys like Whitlock back when that they did make that unexpected playoff run when they beat Tampa. But he was using guys like Whitlock, even Evaldi out of the pen, and just wearing these guys, wearing their arms out till they're about to fall off. And it's it might not be such a coincidence that a lot of these guys now, Evaldi on Texas, they're breaking down. And it's a shame, because Whitlock had electric stuff, and some of those past few outings when he gave up big leads in outings that we never saw before, you got to question if it's a result of how Cora managed their pitching schedules. So
overuse and misuse.
Yeah. Let's go to fans bring the questions. We had a couple questions that were sent in. Let's start with Richard Evans. Richard Evans writes in, what is the biggest reason the season has been disappointing? So, George, let's start with you.
I think for me it's two things that combine to kill you: injury and horrendous defense. Okay, those two things together, gasoline on fire. That's the best I can describe it. That's that you didn't expect the defense to be that bad, and the injury. But I mean, all teams get injured. But if you look at some of the freak stuff that happened this year, like I said, Whitlock on the face, Duvall re-breaking the same wrist that he went down with a couple of years ago. Both those things killed you. That was the reason, big disappointment, because that just led to the losing streaks and everything else. So,
Mikey, what about you?
I mean, I think all those things that George just said, but even in the last offseason, letting all the guys go that we did, and bringing in this group of guys that, I mean, even if things would have had to go perfectly without injuries for us to realistically make a run this year. And once we had a few guys injured and things went south a little bit, we had no backup in place to make up for those, for losing guys like Duvall, all the pitchers that we lost. Had we kept, in the offseason, kept Evaldi, Waka, even a couple of those guys, at least it gives you a little room for error. But we came into the season relying on, I mean, Kluber was our the home opening day starter. It's just, you're not going to win with just treating our roster like Tampa Bay and getting a bunch of retreads and just hoping you strike lightning in a bottle. So, and I feel bad for a lot of the players, because they got a good bunch of guys. And one guy that I've loved this year has been Kenley, who that was one of the good signings. It's been nice to have a reliable lockdown closer, but they've just treated the rest of the roster like a small market team, which drives me as a fan crazy. You go to Fenway, it's one of the most expensive tickets in the league. The fans pack that place in every day. You wouldn't think that they'd be cutting back so much on the payroll and letting. I get if they can't keep everybody, but the just amount of talent that they've let walk for because of money. It kills me as a fan, because we're not Tampa. Like, we should be doing things like that the Dodgers do, and going out and signing big players like Mookie from us, which the Yankees would have never let that happen. And I think it started in the offseason, and it's really reared its ugly head throughout the season with the injury and the defense. When was the last time you saw so many little league type home run plays where a infield single gets turned into a home run? Like, it's just, the defense has absolutely killed them. It's cost us probably the difference in what their deficit in the wild card race is. Despite all that, it's actually kind of a miracle that we are even still in even though it's the chances are minuscule, it's probably a miracle that we're still even mathematically in it. But yeah, I think the offseason was where they really first dropped the ball, and it just has snowballed from there.
Yeah, my biggest disappointment is the starting pitching. Just like you said, Mikey, and I'm going to piggyback a little bit off you and George both. From the offseason, when you sit there and have said your projected lineup for starting pitchers was going to be Kluber, Sale, you're going to count Paxton coming in, Bayo, and then Pivetta. You're going to have Houck, you're going to have Whitlock, throw it in there for some longer innings. Bayo came in, Cutter Crawford. Like, you counted those guys, like 9 guys right there to get you to the promised land. Like, no.
You're not going to win that way.
No. You had nobody on that roster that was a starting pitcher that can sit there and say, Pivetta was the closest person.
Yeah.
That's going to sit there and raise their hand and be like, I'm going to eat innings for you. You let Evaldi leave. You let Walker leave. Hill gone. Like, and then you had starting pitchers in the market. Verlander, Scherzer. Who else was out there? Rodon. He didn't pitch, but you had these other starting pitchers. Like, next year in this offseason, if we do not sign minimum 2 starting pitchers, and I'm talking about a number 1 and number 2, that would give Bayo to be your number 3 and to continue to develop. I'm okay with that. Sale.
Yeah, we don't know what we're gonna get with Sale. We can't keep banking on the fact that he's looked great in his rehab. Looks like he's going to be strong. His first 2 starts of the year are, his velocity has been up for these 2 starts, because you never know which start he's going to feel that twinge and just leave the game early and then be out for 2 months or whatnot. It's a shame, because you can tell how much it's killing him, and no one's harder on himself than Sale.
No.
And he's such he's the type of player that we love in Boston. He's such a gamer, grinder. But he's one of those guys that you almost, it doesn't look like he might ever be the same, and he'll ever he might show flashes, but I don't think he's definitely not someone we can go into next season
Right.
putting
You know,
chips into.
DC Ritt and I have kicked this around. Is like, is less more with him? Okay.
Do you turn him into a closer? Maybe I don't know.
Well, yeah, end of the road. Let's go to the back. Let's go to the back and put him in the bullpen.
Yeah.
Oh my, that could be, instead of trotting him out there, trying to trot him out there, and try to get 5 or 6 innings out of him 30 times a year. Get 150 innings.
Yeah.
Let's do 75 innings as a setup or a closer. I mean, with his stuff, he can go that short bit of distance. You would think.
You look at Smoltz, John Smoltz,
John Smoltz,
extended his career for a long while because
correct,
of that.
And that probably extended his career,
Yeah,
because of it. I think that that's a possibility, but you do not have starting pitching.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
The one kid who was supposed to come up, Mata, has been hurt all year. I love his stuff. I have seen him pitch in Portland a couple of times.
Really?
He has electric stuff.
Okay.
They have to go. They do. Rick's point is correct. You have to get a couple of starting pitchers and quality guys. Okay, just to give yourself a fighting chance. It's one of the reasons why, if Shohei, hadn't hurt himself, my theory was throw him a 5-year contract at 360, right?
Absolutely.
Well, that's not going to happen now because his effectiveness is down. But yeah, you've got to go out and get yourself a stud.
You need a guy that you can rely on every. I hate the guy, but a guy like Garrett Cole. Every 5 days you're going to get a solid start from him. You can count on him to start the first game of a playoff series, like a guy that's just going to eat innings and just be consistently in the rotation. Just giving you quality starts. So they need to go out and, they're going to have to pay for it, but you got to pay eventually. You got to shell out the cash. I know Heim is doesn't like to pay, but you got to do it. Pitching, you have to pay for. He's got to, they need a top of the line starter or two to even, give themselves a chance next year. So, I
exactly,
I agree with Ritt's point about going out and not dropping the ball like last season, letting the 3 guys go, and then getting a guy, whether it's a Scherzer or Giolito, to kind of anchor that rotation.
Corbin Burns, wouldn't he look nice in a Red Sox uniform?
Oh yeah,
absolutely good. He goes out there. He's a stud. Okay, go out there, give you everything he's got. He's so pissed off at the Brewers right now that you could woo him into coming to Boston, where the baseball tradition is incredible. But
that's the other thing too. Players want to come here. We're not a city where you necessarily have to sell it. Like Fenway, the reputation of the history of the Sox, players want to play here. So it shouldn't be that hard of a sell. If they're willing to give a competitive offer to top line starters, it shouldn't be a hard sell. We should not keep having problems where we're losing quality free agents and not bringing any in. So.
Oh, agreed. Yeah. But you're right. You got to pay for guys like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they don't come cheap.
Yeah. You get what you pay for.
Yeah. So let's go to our
next question.
Let's go to our next question.
Yeah.
From JB, biggest surprise, biggest disappointment of 2023. So, Mikey, let's start with you.
I'd probably say, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, it was Duran. He looked like he was destined to be a career minor leaguer last year, and he has just balled out this year and shown what he can do with that incredible speed that he has. And as long as he keeps on this path and keeps improving that defense, which it was terrible last year and it's got a lot better this year. It's still not completely there because he doesn't always take the best routes on balls. He has just come out of nowhere this year and just hit with power, hit for better average. Defense has improved. He's my biggest surprise. Biggest disappointment. I mean, probably a guy like Whitlock, who was on the path of just being that the lockdown relief guy. When they moved him to starter, you figured hopefully he could carry that on and just be that number 2 or 3 guy that you know was rock solid in the rotation. I mean, he had top of the line stuff with the velocity, and he's just been a total non-factor this year, and the injury bug has really hurt him. And I don't know whether it's he tried to rush back too soon, but they got to get him right next year, because when he's on, he's on. He's a great asset to that pitching staff. So I'd say Duran, biggest pleasant surprise, and Whitlock, biggest disappointment.
Okay, George, what about you?
Biggest surprise, Massa. That he's played as well as he has. For every Ichiro, for every Matsui, there's guys that just come in, do okay, and kind of flame out and go. He's demonstrated he's a good hitter. Okay. They complained about his defense. I don't think he's been horrible out in the outfield.
Fine, yeah.
He's an average left fielder. Okay, fine. And he hasn't really embarrassed himself at Fenway either, because we all know the left field wall can do strange things to outfielders. Yeah. So, that to me was the biggest surprise, that he was as good as the Red Sox thought he was. Okay. I was kind of like fingers crossed and, like, hey, let's do this. The biggest disappointment to me was Kike. I honestly thought coming out of spring training, he could handle the job. And things just got worse and worse. And it was like he couldn't help himself towards the end. He was trying to show I could do this, and he just try to do things in his mind. He thought he could do it. Just the body and the whole capability just went south. Kind of like Chuck Knobloch suddenly not being able to do what he could do at second base. It became an embarrassment. And that, I figured, he came up as an infielder. They moved him to outfield, and he shined as a center fielder. He figured he's a good athlete. He should be able to do. He was not going to be perfect, but I figured he'd, do a heck of a lot better than he did. So that was probably my biggest disappointment.
Yeah,
it almost seems like it got in his head.
Well, it was on his resume. Remember that. So, but my biggest surprise this year is how clutch Justin Turner's been. Like, I looking at his numbers, he's always been consistent, with his career numbers. But I never thought he would be this clutch as often as he's been this season.
Great point. Yeah, great.
Carrying
us down the stretch.
Single-handedly sometimes, George sit there and it was 10:30 at night, way back when JT took that ball, and 2 weeks later he's in the batting cages, taking live BP, and he was just like, dude, this is crazy. He's like, this guy's Turner tough. Throw some dirt on it, and that there, went and we finally threw it on a shirt, throw some dirt on it, Turner tough, and the whole team, like, he is supposed to be on the IL right now with his heel.
JD would have been.
JD would have still been out probably from that from the ball to the face. But but Turner is like, dude, he goes, I don't have the luxury. He's like, they need me at first, they need me at DH, like whatever. It's crazy, and he's my biggest surprise. My biggest disappointment this year is Alex Cora, and all the mismanagement that he's had. Like, you tell in a post-game press conference, Kike's done at shortstop, and then 2-3 days later, he's a shortstop. Why? You know what I mean?
Mm.
For all the deep, their basic running mishaps on the bases, it goes on the players, but
Yeah.
where are those repercussions at? The only guy that I seen him have any repercussions for was my man Verdugo.
Yeah.
Like Devers doesn't run out every ball. Do you see him, getting benched now?
Mm.
Kike is thrown to the cameraman at first base. He's not getting benched. The bullpen blow-ups. That's all on AC. He's my biggest disappointment this year. And I don't see him coming back next year.
Really?
I talked about it a couple episodes ago with our Pesky Party girls when they were on, and I think the next guy up is the man right next to him. I think it's Veritek. I think they're gonna sit there and let Veritek. Heim never got to pick his manager ever. AC was always going to be coming back. So I think Heim gets a chance to choose his guy, and who better to
help
run
that pitching staff?
Help the pitching staff.
Mm-hmm.
Who better than to organize a bullpen than a guy that's caught the most shutouts in MLB history? You know what I mean? So that's my, and it's gonna lead into the next question. Johnny Football asked, will Chaim Bloom get fired this offseason? So it's got to be one of the two. And I think Chaim is one more year, his job secure because of the farm system and the future he's put together. If he can get us a pitcher or two, like I mentioned, and maybe another bat, I think Chaim gets us through. But I don't think AC will be there to put everything together. So I think Chaim will not get fired this offseason. George, what about you?
I disagree. I cannot see John Henry going to the Fan Fest again,
getting booed,
and they'll burn him in effigy. Okay, he's had good off season in the sense that he got Martin and Jansen, Duvall, and he signed he signed Massa. Okay, 5 moves that were good. His so-called depth is what killed us. He had bodies, okay, but he hasn't got anything.
Not quality body, right?
His first instinct when he goes out, when he tries to get players to sign, is to lowball.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes you as a manager and you get into management, sometimes you just got to go, I'm going to put my pride aside and just say, I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for the betterment of the organization. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he sees that. I expect him to be gone. I think that I think that Kennedy and Henry like AC. He's a player's manager. All right. Yeah, he's got like all managers. He's got a soft spot. He had a soft spot for Kike. And he's not going to blow up Devers at this point. But Verdugo, he challenged Verdugo, and Verdugo answered the bell. But good heavens, he's kind of ridden the roller coaster ride. He appears to be back on track again. But he knows how to get the most out of it. I think the Chaim Bloom show is rapidly coming to a close. One man's opinion.
Okay. No, and I love sitting there talking about this because, like, me saying AC's gone, I don't see him being gone from the organization. I see him giving him a role upstairs, but I think his his time on the field is done. So, Mikey, what are your thoughts? Is Heimblum, will he be here next season?
I think if my opinion is if one of the two are to go, it will be Heim, because Cora, they can at least say, well, he wasn't given the team, the roster to succeed, and look at what he still did. He still kept us competitive. And Heim has just been this kind of excuse that he's been hiding behind of trust the process, be patient. This is Boston. We're not, we're not patient. Like we want results, and it's been 3 years now of just mediocrity and just blunders of letting talent go. That like George said, I don't know if they would survive showing up to another fan fest and looking at the fans with a straight face and saying, like, yeah, this is our vision. This, things are on track, because it's just been just a bleep show of just mismanagement, bad personnel decisions. Oh
yeah.
I don't really see where, I see that they don't want to spend. I see that they're trying to replenish the farm system, but it's this is Boston. We want to win. Like I can live with it back when like in 2013 we'd win the World Series and we'd finish in last, but then we come back. And here it's just it feels like we're on quite a downward trend of more losing than winning, and just the talent level that the talent evaluation from this GM has just, it's been poor. So I think if either of them are going to go, I think it will be Bloom.
Okay. I'm looking at it. I love looking at things like long term. And if I was Heim, he just got us under the luxury tax this season. So now we can go out and spend next season. Who's the hottest and the biggest name next season that could come over and help us? Ohtani.
Well, Showtime. Yeah. But I mean, what's going on with his injury? Like, where does that leave things?
Hey, we do need a pitcher, but we don't know. But we're going to go right into the next question right here, because it's going to kind of lead into what we're talking about. From Ryan Murphy, will any big moves be made the offseason? Because there better be at least one. So I'm going to sit there and say there's going to be 2 big moves, and they will both be coming from the West Coast. I'm saying we're going to sign Shohei, and we are going to sign what is that Japanese pitcher? Yamamoto. We are treating, and we have treated Masa so very well. And I think those 2 key pieces will help us sum up some of our problems. Another
Shohei's
big
close
signing,
to him, isn't he?
Oh yeah. So another great addition I think we're gonna get. I think I would love to be able to scrape out Corbin Burns also.
Yeah.
I would love to. If we could get Yamamoto, Burns, and Shohei. Now, Shohei might not get that big deal. He might just sign a 1-year deal, 2-year deal, with somebody to show, his health.
Get that value up, yeah.
And then get the value up. I'll sit there and take a chance on him for a year or 2.
Absolutely.
George, is there going to be any big season moves?
Yeah, I think the Sox are the front runners for Yamamoto. I I think that by far he's probably one of the better pitchers that'll be out there. I'd love to see him pull the trigger for Corbin Burns as well.
Mm-hmm.
The thing to remember about bringing on Shohei is it's got to be on a 2-year deal because you don't get both ends of the equation until very late in the season. It creates another problem in that you have another left-handed bat in the lineup. Currently, the Sox, when they're doing well, their 2 power right-handed bats are Turner and Duvall, right? Turner's 38, Duvall's 34? All right.
Getting up there.
I'd like to see both of them back. But again, you've just left-heavied yourself again because you're not going to put Shohei on the bench. He's not going to be able to play the field. All right. So, the merry-go-round of, Turner at DH, put Raffy at DH, put, one of the outfielders in at DH, just kind of give him, a little bit of blow from time to time. That's going to be problematic. And you don't know what kind of pitcher you're going to get from Shohei in August. All right. He's a competitor, but yeah, realistically, anybody coming back from a Tommy John, they're not, their first 6 to 8 outings usually aren't stellar. So, what are you getting? The following year in 25, if you sign up for a 2-year deal, yeah, that's a show me the money time. And Shohei will show them. But again, yeah, Yamamoto for sure. Absolutely. I'd be surprised if he doesn't end up in Boston. Okay. I think Boston's demonstrated by bringing Massa here that, you can survive and he's been treated well. And he's probably the equal ambassador, in terms of, luring Japanese talent here. But yeah, that's it. Corbin Burns, outside shot for me, and this, Ritt. I love Juan Soto.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to see him here.
Is he available?
Yeah.
He might be because they can't pay everybody. And they're already talking about, making some real wholesale changes, to move people around, including our favorite old previous shortstop moving into first base. So
Bogarts, really?
Oh yeah, that's been talked about.
Huh.
Yeah, looking at some of these, some of the people available next year. Of course, we got Shohei. Matt Chapman, he's available.
Yeah.
Julio Arias, the starting pitcher from the Dodgers. Scherzer.
Yeah.
Aaron Nola. From, I think it's Korea. Hung Ho Lee. He's an outfielder. He's coming over. Severino. Blake Snell. Kershaw, which Kershaw I think he's gonna end up dying a Dodger.
Yeah.
Josh Hader, Rosario, Hoskins, Teoscar Hernandez, Jock Peterson, Gioliti, Hunter Renfroe, and now we're getting down to the other Jack Flaherty and Jordan Montgomery. So, we got some big name pitching, that could come over easily. But Mikey, what are your thoughts? Who's coming to Boston next year?
Oh, I just pulled up the free agent list. They got to bring somebody in. They got to make a splash this offseason. I mean, what better way, like you said, bring someone like Ohtani in to kind of give this, the fan base and the guys on the roster a little kind of pick me up of, we got some reinforcements coming. They need at least one, if not two, starting level potential aces to sign as well. I mean, even a guy like, and I don't know if he has a player option, but Stroman I think would be another good option as well. They got to do something. They got to make a splash. They got to spend. Um, Another interesting one, like you had mentioned, I didn't realize Soto was necessarily available, but man, he would be. I mean, that would be a great pickup, a great weapon for this lineup. Um, I can't think of one guy that I would particularly want to just key on, but they got to do something. They got to make a splash. They got to. I mean, who was the last real big ticket free agent that they brought in the offseason? And it's hard to. I can't think of who. I think back to back when they'd sign Manny Ramirez or make a splash like that, which worked out great. But it's been a while since they really made a real big splash in free agency like that. And I think they got to just reinvigorate the fan base. Just the players on the team probably want to know that there's going to be some type of reinforcements. I know at the trade deadline, a lot of the players were saying, we want to buy. We don't want to sell. We want to buy. And when they didn't, it deflated them. Because it was, okay, well, we don't have any reinforcements coming, or what does does management believe in helping us? So I think it would help the fan base, the players, just the morale of the whole city. They got to make a splash. I don't care who it is. They got to sign someone. They got to make a big splash and kind of get the excitement back here in Boston.
Yeah, the trade deadline, you bring up a great point where Heim was counting too much on those 4 guys coming back. Trevor Story, he's been great in the playing shortstop.
Yeah.
His bat's not been quite there.
Terrible. Yeah.
If they would have went and got a Flaherty, a Montgomery, one of those two to help us out, even a Rich Hill or someone huge. You can't tell me that Verlander would have turned down coming to Boston. Maybe after his quick conversation he had with AC in the Astros game, he might have turned it down. But if they would have picked up another starting pitcher or two, and then we could have eased Whitlock, Sale, and Houck back in, then we could have had a nice little playoff contention.
Whole different story.
Then, it's playoff time now? Oh, okay. Release Sale, from the bullpen.
Yeah.
It's completely different. But now, Heim gave up on the team. Now the players are giving up on themselves. And now the fans are giving up on them. After we got swept by the Astros, I have seen all over Twitter the tombstones.
Yeah.
Our season, it's done. Our season's done and over with.
Yeah.
It's like we didn't even give our chance to go to September to fail. Yeah. We failed in August.
Yeah.
But Mikey, I love your thought. We gotta bring someone in that's gonna sit there and bring the city, back to life. George, can you think of when was the last time we brought in a big name?
JD. Well, that was a pretty big signing for them. It happened late in spring training.
Maybe even remember Carl Crawford when they brought him in?
Oh.
I mean, it didn't work out good, but he had a great career up until that point. And he always killed us. Everyone we swept in and kind of
throw David Price in that conversation as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, the only decent one that is signed was JD. I mean, he's responsible for 2018.
Absolutely.
I mean, they haven't made the splash. They haven't. It's like I said, the Manny Ramirez thing. They haven't done the Manny Ramirez deal. Okay.
That was over 20 years ago.
And put that with Kurt Schilling as well. I mean, they traded for him, but I mean, go find somebody. It's almost like they don't want to get burned
Yeah, but you're exactly right. But then when you're GM scared, you lose. It's sometimes you get
right. If you play
look at
scared,
Dombrowski.
you don't play well, and he's
Yeah.
not playing real well right now.
Yeah.
I'd like to be at a poker table with him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but guys, hey, thanks for the questions you sent in. Appreciate them. Love hearing from you guys' point of view.
Oh, he froze.
He froze.
All right, but yeah, it is fun answering the questions. So if I'm back in the podcast sometime, keep sending in those questions because those were good. I know it made me think a little bit, and it brought up some interesting maybe thoughts for the off season. George, you got some great thoughts as well. So
I mean, it's what baseball's all about. It's the great what if sport, right?
Yeah.
What if
Absolutely.
you've done this? What if you've done that? Or we were able to get this guy and not that guy. Okay.
Yeah.
For every good off-season move you make, there's 3 or 4 that you go, oh God, what were we thinking?
Yeah.
Right. So
absolutely.
yeah, I mean that's the key. And this fan base is just incredible with their passion.
Yeah.
Right. So
like none other.
Yeah, really, it's like Yankees fans, quite frankly, are a little pompous and posturing most times.
27
right?
rings about.
Oh yeah, right. They'll throw it up in your face. They can't do 1918 anymore, but how many rings do I have? Yeah,
yeah.
How many is that in this century?
Exactly.
Right.
But Mikey, tell everybody where they can find you at. Where they can listen to your podcast.
Yeah. I'm on. If you want to look me up on Twitter, Mikey Two Guns, Mikey, the number 2, Gunzz on Twitter. I host a show every Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. on IE Sports Radio called Our Bleepin City. You can look it up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. You can get all the shows, download them all. You don't have to listen to it live, but every Wednesday, 7 to 8, IE Sports Radio, Our Bleepin City. I'd love, hopefully I can get you guys on the show sometime, which would be nice. And look me up on Twitter. I'm also on Instagram at Mikey Two Guns, Our Bleepin City. So I look forward to talking to you, Ritt and George, some more. And it's been really a pleasure joining you guys and talking some good Red Sox baseball.
Hey, Mikey, we're definitely going to get you back on when my internet's 100% because this is probably the worst episode with internet-wise I've ever done.
Oh, I've been there. No worries.
So, but guys, make sure you sit there and follow us over on YouTube. Check us out on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and head on over to the Pesky Podcast.square.site. We're having a huge Labor Day sale. We've got our glassware, we've got the mason jars, we got the shirts with the logos on it. They get a Pesky Party Girl shirt. We've got some Turner Tough, throw some dirt on it shirts. Mi casa es su casa. And then we also have the Halkamania shirts. So make sure you guys head on over there, get your guys' merchandise while it's on sale, and make sure you check us out next time on the Pesky Podcast.